Welcome back to Love Is, the podcast for midlife women who are ready to love differently. I am your host, Stacey Herrera. Before we get into today's juicy topic, I want to invite you to my upcoming masterclass on relationship patterns. It's free. We are going to be digging into the truth about why we find ourselves repeating the same old hokey pokey relationship patterns. Did I mention it's free? It's free. And it's all going down on Thursday, January 23rd at 1 p.m. Pacific. That's 4 p.m. Eastern. And if you can't make it live, no problemo. Everyone who registers will get a copy of the video recording, also the session transcripts, a comprehensive slide deck, and the audiobook version for deeper integration. And again, did I mention it's free? It's free. So sign up today because space is limited, and you can register at staceyherrera.com/patterns-masterclass. Again, that's staceyherrera.com/patterns-masterclass. Now let's get into it. Today, I want to talk about busyness. Have you ever, I know I've done this, so I know you probably have too, when it's one of those times when someone asks you how you're doing, and rather than telling them how you're feeling, which we often say fine, and that's an episode for another day because that's rarely true. But rather than telling them about how you're actually feeling, you say one word, busy. When your calendar is so full that you can barely breathe, but somehow busy feels safer than having space. You're just so used to doing that it feels better, or you feel lost even when your calendar is not busted at the seams. So today I want to talk about that because that's something that comes up often in my line of work, about how busy becomes a shield against intimacy. And no, this is not going to be an episode about time management or work-life balance, although we could talk about that, but not today. Today, I want to dive into something deeper. I want to dive into why exhaustion feels more comfortable than connection. Sometimes, not always. So what's really happening when we are too busy? Sometimes we're saying, what we're really saying is we're too busy for love. We're too busy for connection. We're too busy to have a conversation. But underneath all of that is this truth that we don't often talk about, and that's that being busy is socially acceptable. Nobody questions it when you are swamped. Nobody is like, why are you busy? That's not okay. That's so not normal, right? We often wear busyness like a badge of honor. We're like, oh, I'm just so busy. And we say it with a sigh or a tired smile. I'm just so busy, right? But underneath that, we almost are comfortable with it because we've been doing it so long and everybody around us is doing it too. I once had a client who was so frustrated about her dating life. And of course, she was successful and her social life was very active and her calendar was always full. And she was wanting to find love. At least that's what she told herself. But then she also said, but I'm too busy to date. So it's like, do you want to find love or are you too busy to date? It sounds like it makes perfect sense, but it doesn't. And once we dug deeper, of course, something else emerged because that's what happened when we dig deeper. Every time she met someone that could have possibly been a potential partner, her calendar would mysteriously fill up. I mean, she'd have more meetings and an extra yoga class, urgent dinner plans with her friends. She didn't even realize, and this had gone on for years, by the way, she did not realize that she had been carefully orchestrating her unavailability. And it wasn't just about time. It wasn't about time at all. Busy was her alibi. It's often the perfect alibi for a lot of us because when we're exhausted, when we are overbooked, we have a socially acceptable reason to keep people at arm's length. We get to say stuff like, sorry, crazy week on text message, right? But what we're really saying is, I'm scared to let you get too close, right? Think about this. When was the last time someone challenged you for being too busy? I mean, now self-help is something that we talk about a lot of time, a lot more, like self-love, self-care. And so there's a lot of dialogue happening about it. And thank goodness we're also in this space where people are talking about rest more. But even though those conversations are happening on the internet and there's 50 million books about, rest and self-care and really pausing and taking a break and standing up instead of sitting for too long. There's so much commentary about it, but how much is actually being practiced in our life? Like, how often is anybody questioning why we're so busy, right? We live in this world that celebrates hustles and equates motion with meaning. And being busy is not only acceptable, it's expected. It's expected. But here's where it gets interesting. Being busy doesn't just keep other people from getting too close. It also keeps us from actually feeling all of our feelings. It keeps us from leaning into our longings. And it keeps us from truly connecting, not just with other people, but with ourselves. When so much time is scheduled, like when we're scheduling time down to the minute, there's just no space for quiet moments. There's no space to hear our hearts whisper what we really want. And this is how I see this play out 3 different ways. For singles, it might look like being too busy to date, or busy becomes this protection against rejection because you can't get hurt by love if you never have time for it, right? In relationships, exhaustion is this buffer against intimacy. So you're too tired for deep conversation, you're too drained for vulnerability, and you're too busy to notice the distance that keeps growing between you. After breakups, staying in constant motion is a strategy for outrunning grief. Because if we never slow down, we never have to feel the loss. I get it. I do. I have been in the past, and sometimes even in the present, if I'm not careful, have been the queen of busy. I mean, I went through this phase. I was just talking about this with one of my close friends the other day. I went through this phase where I was like really scheduling every hour of my workday. I mean, back to back appointments. I'd pencil in, write blog posts, between 12 and 1, and then, create some content between 1 and 2, circle back to writing the newsletter for this week between 3 and 4. And it was just ongoing. I think at the time I was working on a group program or something. But as a result of this jam-packed, hour by hour schedule that I was keeping, I was also canceling more opportunities to connect, to enjoy other people's company, to spend time with people I love. It was always, can I get a rain check? Or during an event or right before an event, I would find myself talking myself out of doing something that I knew I would enjoy. It just became this constant cycle of sticking to the calendar and then nixing everything else. Then one day I had this free evening. No plans. My planner was blank. There were no deadlines, no distractions, and I felt panicked. I felt panic. It was like when it got quiet, I had to actually be with the discomfort that I was running from. Like that's what the busyness was about. And that's what nobody tells you about being busy. On the surface, it seems like it's time management, but it's not. It's about emotional management. We pack our calendars to avoid feeling empty. We stay in motion to avoid standing still in our own hearts. So what do we do with this? How do we break free from the busy trap? I want to share a simple exercise because I love simple exercises. Last week, I invited you to the 5-second pause, but this week, I want to invite you into the Spacious Minute. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's 60 seconds of intentional space. This is not about meditation. It's not about self-improvement. It's just space. Here's how it works. Once a day, just once a day, you got 1 minute. Once a day. Once a day, set a timer for 1 minute. Don't fill that minute with anything. Don't try to relax, so don't start doing breathing exercises. And don't try to figure anything out. Just for 60 seconds, just be. And again, 60 seconds seems like a ridiculously short amount of time, but when you are running from busy, 60 seconds can feel like forever, and it might seem like a short time on paper, especially to the overachievers who are out there thinking, should I at least do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe a whole meditation practice? No, no. 60 seconds, just 60 seconds. Because the thing about being constantly in motion is the moment you stop, it feels like time stretches out forever. That first minute of stillness, it might be the longest hour of your day. Because when we finally pause and everything we've been outrunning has a chance to catch up to us, that's when we really see what's really going on. Let me tell you about someone else. Let's call her Maya, not to be confused with an actual friend that I have named Maya. Anyways, so Maya, pseudonym, Maya was always the one that people counted on. At work, in her friend group, her kids, she was the go-to parent. And her schedule always seemed to be filled up with meeting everyone else's needs. And she didn't do any of it begrudgingly, by the way. She loved being available. She loved, taking care of people. That is one of her love languages. But she was running on fumes. She was tired all the time. And she practiced the Spacious Minute while sitting in her car right before she walked in the house. So she'd get home from work, pull in the driveway, and then she'd just sit for 60 seconds in the car before she opened the door and walked inside the house. And the first few times she did it, she was so uncomfortable. She was so uncomfortable. But consistency is key to any practice, right? So instead of her shying away from the discomfort, every time she pulled into the driveway after work, she would just sit there for 60 seconds in the discomfort. And over time, though, those tiny pockets of space, she started to hear herself. Not her to-do list, not her responsibilities. She started to hear her own thoughts. She started to hear her own opinions about things that were going on around her. She started hearing that she wanted to say no to some of the things that she was saying yes to. She was able to be with her desires, what she wanted, what she needed. That 1 minute, 60 seconds of space changed how she moved through her day. She started noticing when she was using busy as a buffer. She also noticed when she was scheduling over her feelings. Let me say that again, because I know some of y'all can relate to that. She started noticing when she was scheduling over her feelings, when she was choosing exhaustion over intimacy and connection. Now, if you are nodding along and you are a current or recovering busyaholic, my upcoming masterclass might be just for you. It is perfect for the emotionally unavailable among us, also for professional people pleasers, love avoidance, and anyone who is just familiar with relationship chaos. This free masterclass called Understanding Your Relationship Patterns is going to be packed with great information. We are going to explore the hidden truth behind relationship patterns, including why we repeat what feels familiar instead of choosing what we want. We are going to really dig into it. You are going to discover the moment your relationship patterns were born, why familiar pain feels safer than unknown joy, where transformation actually begins, and what becomes possible when you see the truth about your patterns. This class is not about adding another layer of analysis. It's really about seeing relationship patterns through new eyes so that we can understand them in a way that finally makes change possible. The masterclass is going to be on January 23rd at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And again, if you can't make it live, that is okay. I got you. Everyone who registers will get the replay of the class, including the transcripts, the slide deck, a resources PDF, and also an audiobook if you prefer to listen on the go. Again, this masterclass is free. Space is limited. So sign up today at staceyherrera.com/patterns dash masterclass. And just a side note, this masterclass is also going to lay the foundation for Sovereignty, my upcoming program where we're going to move beyond understanding the patterns into changing the patterns. So if you're curious about sovereignty or you just want to learn about relationship patterns, because we all need to learn, just sign up for the class. Again, that's staceyherrera.com/patterns dash masterclass. In the meantime, I want you to try the Spacious Minute this week. Just once, see what happens when you let yourself have 60 seconds of pure, unscheduled space. You might be surprised at what surfaces when you're not too busy to notice. Because love is making space for what matters. We don't need to earn rest, or we don't have to try to figure out how to deserve stillness. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is just stop running. Until next time, I love you.